Hey everybody, how's it going? It's January 4th. Happy New Year. And it's RambleCast time. We have a Corbin with us. He is
Hello.
The poor bastard is suffering through CES.
Yes, it's a trying time while other people at the company go to CES. I'm forced to stay home. It's terrible. Sleeping in my own bed at night.
I maintain I maintain extensively you are getting the better deal here.
Probably.
CES is just, aside from the fact that it's in Vegas, which I like, and I know most people don't, or apparently. Aside from that, I did not enjoy the last time I went to CES.
Yeah. I think I would still like to go once at some point. I think, but I'm still a little hazy on that in the forever COVID era for now, and because I don't know if like seeing other people I talk to on the internet is worth possibly getting long COVID. I don't know. It's kind of a tough one for me, but I did go to Disney last year and somehow didn't get COVID, so I might just be invulnerable. And you can clip this part of the live stream and send it to me when I'm in the hospital in the future. That's fine.
Yeah, we'll remember that. So, it's funny because even before there was ever a pandemic, long before that, it was just a widely understood thing. If you go to CES, you should plan for the following week to be sick. That was just a thing almost everyone agreed upon. I forget specifically what they called it, but I think it was just called like the CES flu or something like that.
Yeah. This is the like event version of when everyone is like, oh, the weather in where I live is so weird. Because like I think this is just like every event, but they just like say like call it something else. It's like, yeah, everyone after CES gets sick, everyone after PAX gets sick. I'm sure people got sick after E3 back when it was a thing that normal people still wanted to go to.
Yeah, it's just one of those things when you have that many people passing through that many airports, all tightly packed together. And if you've ever watched like video or even seen pictures of what it's like on the CES floor, the crowds of people are just absolutely packed together like sardines. It's kind of like if you hate walking through crowds at like a concert or in like a busy nightclub or something like that. If you don't like that experience, CES is basically that bad or worse. It's definitely worse because at least at a nightclub, most of the people are pretty.
Wow, are you saying I wouldn't be pretty at CES?
I mean, I said most, and you know the implication is at CES. Look, I'm just saying I had to physically rub very, very closely with a extremely large human who was very hairy and smelled like Blogger. I'm just saying. Look, it's common there. Wow, and with that graphic out of the way,
yes.
dare I ask, are there any things, because I've been kind of watching, but I haven't seen anything that struck me as interesting from CES yet. Is there anything you feel like highlighting?
I don't think there's anything like, well, I don't think there's anything like super massively huge, just because this is a continuation of the decline we've seen in CES for years, even before COVID, where once a company gets big enough, they kind of just have their own event at some other point. So really, what you're left with is either smaller players, which sometimes is still cool, or you have larger companies making smaller announcements. So
yeah, like Samsung's
Sony,
phone.
yeah, Samsung shows up and they have a budget phone and a bunch of TVs.
Yeah.
Roku, same thing. Well, they don't have a phone, but they
technically I would call Roku. I know they're arguably a big player-ish, but I would call Roku one of the small players, because they don't really do a lot of hardware, and half the hardware they have done is not even theirs now.
So like probably I would say in terms of things with the most impact, probably the biggest stuff here is like Intel's new CPUs and Nvidia's new graphics cards. I don't really have a lot to say about either of those. I am like a little. I'm definitely more interested. Like, I'm not going to upgrade my GPU anytime soon. I'm hopefully at some point I can either just go full Mac gamer again, like it's 2013 and I'm playing Team Fortress 2 on my mom's MacBook, or I'll just buy an Xbox at some point and move everything to there. But I'm not ready to do either of those yet. So I don't have a lot to say about the graphics cards. They seem still kind of confusing.
Yeah, and I do want to clarify just what I said. It's not that there aren't plenty of desirable things being announced. It's that most of it just isn't really calling for a discussion. There's not a lot in the like. We could obviously have endless conversations about how Intel is coming out with new chips, some of which are really awkwardly and horribly branded. Zach, if you're listening, that's for you. But obviously we could talk about Nvidia's new GPUs, which, holy crap, yeah, they are really impressive. They are putting out the numbers, but that's the whole discussion right there. They're really impressive. They're putting out the numbers. Cool. What else is there to say? So anyway, like, cheers. There's good stuff. It's just not exciting. Not in the conversational sense.
Yeah, and I'm like, I want to be excited for Intel because I really like. I've had this conversation so many times now, and I've talked about it on Mastodon a couple times. Where like, I really don't like that Apple is so far ahead of everyone else. Like, I want there to be competition. If Windows had like a few more apps, I would and like Apple level processor design going on, either at Intel or Qualcomm or whoever, like, I'd probably switch back just because I would like to also have all my games on my laptop again. But like, they're just not doing great. And every year they're trying more combinations of the like big little kind of architecture, where they have like some cores that are faster and some that are more energy efficient, but they can't seem to get a good balance. And also, none of this is really optimized for that, because a lot of PC software stayed single threaded this entire time. And like, a lot of the more modern stuff, it tries to split itself across as many. Like, even a couple of years ago, that was the goal, was like, make a game or make a high performance application that uses every thread and every core. But like, with these, you're not like really supposed to do that. You're supposed to, like, stick to the efficiency cores or the performance cores, whichever one you need. And so it's just kind of a mess. And in Intel hasn't really figured it out yet. AMD is a little bit better, just out of sheer like having TSMC manufacture all of their laptop chips. That's helping them right now. But it's confusing, and I saw I haven't gone super deep into what Intel announced at CES was their 13th gen laptop chips, and I didn't read a ton into that, but I did write the article about some of their lower end CPUs where they're getting rid of the Pentium and Celeron branding, which has been reserved for their shitty chips for the past couple years, and now they are putting some of the efficiency designs in the Core i3 name, and then the absolute bottom of the barrel, they're copying Qualcomm here, where there's not even a name for them anymore. It's just Intel processor. That's what they're called. just like Qualcomm doesn't put Snapdragon on their really bad chips anymore. It's just, oh, it's a Qualcomm chip. So yeah, I mean, I'll see. I really, really want something better, and there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I just said on, I said on Mastodon a couple of days ago, like, it's really hard to recommend a Windows laptop to someone right now, unless you desperately need Windows. Like if you're playing a game, or you're doing something, maybe you're doing a workload, like I don't know if like Docker is like a thing that can handle multiple architectures, but like something that needs x86 or Windows for some reason makes sense. But like for anything else, it's not good.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know that I'd go so far as to say...
I wish it was, because like Windows 11 is a lot better. It's still not great, but it's a lot better, and it has all my games on it.
Yeah, so I wouldn't go so far as to say it's hard to recommend a Windows laptop per se, because I think there's still enough justifiable arguments for why somebody should choose Windows. The caveat is and it's such a weird thing to say, because holy crap, how much the world has turned around. Bang for your buck, you're getting a better deal by buying some of the lower end Macs.
Yeah.
Just
like
in terms of hardware performance, quality, reliability, just one thing after another. Honestly, like buying a Mac is weirdly the better option, unless what you're trying to do is buy the absolute like cheapest possible laptop, which there's no reason that's off limits, or you have to have Windows. If you can get by running Mac OS, and you're not trying to get the absolute cheapest laptop you can, buy a Mac. Like it just makes more sense.
Yeah, like I have the Mac Mini with the base M1. I put more RAM and storage in mine. Well, I didn't. Apple did. I bought that one, but it's basically the same computer that goes on sale on Amazon for like $600 constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And I have the normal M1 MacBook Air, which I got higher storage capacity on, but otherwise is identical to the base model, and that's like $800 all the time.
Yeah.
And there is like a nice segment of like Windows laptops between like $400-$600 where you can get a pretty good computer in there, and Apple doesn't have anything in that price range. And obviously, like if you're on a much tighter budget, then there is stuff. It's not that great, but again, Apple doesn't have a answer. Apple wants you to buy an iPad when you get down to that price range, but that's not a real computer.
Not yet.
You don't buy that to do computer things unless your computer work is typing emails. But yeah, so like there's some ranges, but yeah, it's just really hard. And like someone when I brought that up, someone replied like, I don't want to pay the Apple tax, and I was like, does that exist anymore? like Apple still charges insane stuff for like their accessories,
Yeah.
and like to a certain degree, some of the like storage upgrades are still crazy.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, the
But like,
storage upgrades can be pretty
yeah,
iffy.
but like base model Apple stuff, like you're getting really, really crazy value.
Well, base model plus even a few of the lower end upgrades, like bumping the RAM up, is actually pretty worthwhile.
Yeah,
for
like
the
I
price.
like I did. Yeah, like my Mac Mini, I think it came out to be less than $1,000 once I doubled the RAM to 16 gigs and got a 512 gig storage drive, I think. And this is like the best desktop computer I've ever had. Like I was mentioning the other day, like I was in full, I'm like CES full work mode, got a bunch of Chrome tabs open, got Photoshop, bunch of Electron apps, not a single slowdown. It didn't, I don't think I've ever seen it go up like above 50% CPU usage unless I'm playing Planet Coaster, which is a simulation game that is also being emulated from x86.
Yeah. Okay, so really quick to hit
we
chat.
got some comments.
First, responding to Hoopy, the stream layout is technically correct, yes. What should be on the right side of the screen is chat, but for whatever reason that has been broken for the last week or two. So yeah, I need to go actually fix that, figure out why it's broken. I suspect there's probably a good reason. I don't know what it is, and I never got an email to explain it, so I'm thinking it probably just is something that is broken on their side and I need to go fix it. And to Scuttlefield, yeah, no, see, like I said, if you have to use Windows, there you go, it's kind of a no-brainer. And I was saying immediately before we went live, Corbin and I were actually kind of having this conversation in a different context. At some point, I'm pretty sure I'll have to be reinstalling Windows on something, or I'll have to have a Windows system. And I was debating, like, do I build or buy a new computer to run Windows, or do I just take an older Mac that's still Intel based and install Windows to that and just use it that way? I haven't decided yet, but honestly, like, I'm pretty tempted just to keep using the Mac because, well, MacBook Pro, because it's a pretty good machine. It'll run Windows honestly better than most Windows machines, and it's hard to justify switching. So yeah, I don't know yet. But I will say, you mentioned buying a Surface for personal work use. I will never again buy a Microsoft a Microsoft made computer. I had a Surface Book, worst experience actually that's not true. And Alienware was the worst experience I ever had. But the Surface Book was easily the second worst. Actually, well, okay. There was an HP laptop that I had for about 48 hours. That one might also have been worse, but I don't know that you can count it if you immediately return it. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I did like the Surface Laptop 4 I had for 5 months until I sold it to get a MacBook. Well, I liked most of the hardware. I think the keyboard on that was better than my MacBook keyboard. It was really nice. I liked the boxy design. It was actually pretty close to like what the new M2 MacBooks look like. And it had, touchscreen and everything. But yeah, it was just, again, normal Windows stuff. At one point there were a couple points where I had it on the charger overnight, and in the morning I would go take it off and it was like warm. And I was like, uh-oh, what's going on here? But it like wasn't strictly the laptop's fault. It was the HP printer driver that was scheduling Windows to automatically turn on so the driver could check for updates, and Windows would just stay on overnight, and then it would get warm because the laptop was still charging while Windows was running with the lid shut. So that's a Windows / HP issue that I didn't know could happen.
Yeah.
Oh, Scuttlefield got a Surface Pro 8. Okay.
Yeah, and
I had
the Surface Pro is definitely the lowest risk of the Surface products. The closer that you get to like a Surface Book or their what's the other one that's kind of laptop like, or it's just what Surface laptop.
The Surface laptop is the one that's just a normal laptop. The Surface Book is the one that was first adopting. The newer ones, the screen doesn't come off anymore. There's just like a hinge that flips around the screen and puts it back on the keyboard. Which I don't know, maybe that fails less, but
yeah, the hardware failure rate on the Surface Book was just astronomically high. But I've heard a lot of complaints about the Surface laptop having problems too, which screams to me that their quality control is just a disaster. Actually, I don't even think it's quality control. I think their quality control is fine. I think their design is deeply flawed, and they just make things that, by their design, maybe not intentionally, but their design ensures that they are going to break easy. So
yeah, I didn't keep mine long enough to find out. I will say my issue with the laptop, besides the fact that it was just, like battery life wasn't great because it's just Windows on a laptop, was Microsoft is still very allergic to ports. Like you get like the Surface connector thing that no one really wants to use, and like if you've been a good boy for Christmas, you get like 2 USB ports, and that's it. I think most of them still only have like 1 Type-C and like 1 Type-A, I think.
Oh, that is just... Here I am. I'm sitting here with... Okay, right now the streaming computer that I'm using has 3 out of 4 USB-C ports in use. But on a normal occasion, I can't count the number of times that I have had every port on either of these MacBook Pros. I have filled every port and usually been like, damn, how do I plug in this other thing? Yeah. It happens way more than it needs to for having 4 ports.
I went from my Dell XPS that had this has 3 USB-C ports, and they're also Thunderbolt, and I got this a couple years ago. And then I went to the Surface laptop, which I think had 1 Type-C and 1 Type-A and the Surface connector. So that was actually the computer where I had to buy a Anchor USB hub thing, so I could charge over USB while also having other things plugged in, because the alternative was bringing that proprietary cable with me everywhere. So it would leave a USB port free. And now I just have the M1 Air that has 2 ports, which is fine. I'm not really plugging things in that much. It's really just I need to charge the laptop, and sometimes I will use a mouse or a flash drive.
The things I'm plugging in all the time are external monitor, obviously power. So whether it's the new one or the old one, the spot at the top left is whatever port that is, it's usually plugged into power. So monitor, if I'm streaming, I have mic and webcam plugged into a USB hub that plugs into a single port. And if I'm game streaming, I've got the capture card plugged into a port. Let's see. If I'm doing photo edits, I have my Wacom tablet plugged into a port. Also, if I'm doing photo edits, I probably got to plug in my camera. Though that's a plug it in, pull off the files, and unplug it promptly. But yeah, it's... if I'm doing any sort of development for phones, I have phones plugged in. What else? I feel like I have external hard drives that I sometimes have to plug into. Um, the weird thing is I feel like I'm forgetting stuff still. But yeah, that's granted, I'm not sitting here game streaming while developing an application while editing photos. I'm not doing all of these things at the same time, but in any one of these scenarios, I pretty much either am using every port or I actually want one more than I have. And that's yeah, I really just want a couple more ports.
Yeah,
that would make me a lot happier.
More would be nice. Poopy said also a base iPad and a keyboard is well over $800. Sorry, make that $700 plus tax. Yeah, I bought a I did get an iPad Air a while ago, and I was curious to do okay, can I use this as like a sub laptop? Because I did that with my Galaxy tablet for a while, and it was just kind of okay at that. So I did get I got the iPad Air off of Swap. It's like a little bent on the edges. I don't really care. And then I got Logitech's keyboard case for it, which is actually pretty nice, and I can take it off if I want. And this was like $100, I think, which is still way cheaper than Apple's Magic Keyboard. And I've learned I cannot do my job on an iPad, as it turns out. Still, I think, well, it's mostly I could do it. It just takes longer, and because there is Photoshop and stuff on this, which was not on my Galaxy tab. But the main thing is I cannot work on a 10-inch screen as much as I'd like to, because this is really tiny. I can put this in any bag ever at all. I need more space, and I'm not buying an iPad Pro for the bigger screen. That's kind of insane. So yeah, it doesn't really make sense to use an iPad as a traditional computer ever. It's nice though. I like having the, iPad OS is pretty nice. It has, mine is a USB-C port, so I have plugged in displays just for fun, and mice and stuff, and that does work. But yeah, no, I can't do my job from an iPad. Unless I got the really big iPad, but at that point, why am I buying an iPad? I'll just buy a laptop.
We've definitely talked about this in the past, and I don't want to go too far down this road, or rather, probably should go down this road right now. But I will say, I still believe that an iPad one day, at least on the larger screen sizes, will be very practical for use as a productivity, basically as a laptop replacement. I think that day is coming. It's just not here yet. But we'll see what happens. I think that's just a matter of having a large enough screen size, a little bit more software development, both by Apple and by third-party app developers, to kind of fill out those workflows that would work for people like tech bloggers who have to go to an event and edit images and then quickly put those images into a blog post. That's a workflow that you can certainly do it on an iPad. It just takes a lot of taps. It's not fun or enjoyable to do it on an iPad. And it's definitely just indisputably a lot slower than what you can do on a laptop. Or, well, on a traditional window-based OS.
The big thing for me is the web browsers are not that good. Safari on the Mac is okay.
Well, hey, just remember one day very soon you'll be able to sideload Chrome with the real engine.
Yeah, I'll believe that when I see it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm being sarcastic
yeah.
as hell.
It's
Um,
yeah. There's just there's a bunch of little things, and like when you know try to use Safari on iPad with a keyboard, but then it wants to load mobile websites, or it like still responds to touch input, and it's kind of weird. I think if there was a quote unquote real browser, I could probably do it. It would again still be a little bit slow, but that's one respect where I would actually I could like 100% do my job at a similar speed with a Chrome OS tablet. It would I would just hate myself more.
well, yeah, yeah. And which reminds me of all the times that I've heard and known people who've gone to, well, we'll just say CES since it's the most apropos example going right now. Uh, they've tried doing their jobs at CES using a Chromebook or using an iPad. Um, I can't say I know anyone who's actually tried going to CES and using an iPad. I know people do it. I've heard them talk about it. And they seem to think it's great and there's no drawbacks at all, but I honestly swear these are people who are just trying to rationalize it. Or, or their workflows on laptops were actually so bad that they objectively, you could argue, don't know what the hell they're doing, in which case, their claims of using an iPad are really just symbolic of how bad they were at doing things on a laptop. Um, but it seems a little more practical on a Chromebook, just not practical enough. You can still do better on on Mac OS or Windows or
If you
any
need a
mainstream Linux desktop.
yeah.
Like, yeah, they're all gonna be better than trying to use a Chromebook.
Yeah. So, in conclusion, Intel needs to try harder, but it probably won't because it just got a bunch of government money to build factories here that will take years to build and then probably will still be behind what Taiwan can do.
Well, either Intel needs to try harder, or Nuvia needs to be. It needs to. Well, it's no longer really Nuvia; it's now Qualcomm. But they need to win their case against ARM and come out with a chip that blows the hell out of
Yeah.
Intel's current chips.
I might need to be more aggressive in my asking of PR people, but I still would really like to try an ARM Windows laptop. I know they're bad, but I want to try it just to see what the experience is like and write about it probably. But I haven't had a chance to do that yet, except in parallels on my MacBook, but that's not the same thing.
It really isn't, because
Um,
by all accounts, it works better than any of the actual native ARM.
yeah, Apple can just brute force.
Yeah,
But
that should not possibly be true, but here we are.
yeah. Speaking of silly laptops, I wanted to make fun of this for a second.
Okay.
Send you. Is this the right link? Yeah. Okay. So some of you may know that back in October, Google did the first big push for gaming Chromebooks, which are a new category of Chromebooks that have high refresh rate screens, so that when you have a cloud gaming service that supports more than 60 FPS, which is some of them, they'll look better in theory. You're still dealing with like video compression, which is sometimes worse at those higher frame rates, so it's kind of a wash. But that's not the point at this second.
Yeah.
So they have high refresh rate screens. They have a couple of software tweaks, like you can search for games in the like launcher, and it'll show it in a service if you have it installed. And they have like RGB keyboards, because you have to have that on anything gaming related, or it's not for gamers. And I can get behind that 100%. Honestly, lights are fun. I think all computers should have the option of having obnoxious lights. So Asus came out with another one This is the Asus Chromebook Vibe CX34 Flip. That is the real product name.
I like to believe that the real product name is Asus Chromebook Vibe CX34 Flip, parentheses, CX3401, comma, 12th gen Intel, close parentheses.
Yeah.
Full name.
Yeah, it's a great... Asus can really name them. And
honestly, this still isn't as bad as Sony's names.
No. At least this has words.
Yes.
But yeah, this is mostly a smaller version of the laptop they started selling in October. This is a 14-inch laptop, and the one they already had was 16 inches. And this has a 16 by 10, 144 hertz screen, which is that's cool. I do kind of wish my laptop was high refresh rate sometimes, but just because it makes all the menus and everything smoother. And it's got the RGB keyboard. It's obviously built for cloud gaming. And these are, it's got, Wi-Fi 6E, all that fun stuff. And it's a 2-in-1 laptop, so you can flip around and sit it like a tent or use it like a giant tablet if you want.
So you can go on a plane and pull out your controller and play game. Well, you won't be able to, but you could pretend to. I guess you could bring a movie.
Yeah, these are just so weird. Like, this has got to be one of the most baffling segments of tech products I've seen lately. Because, like, I think I said this when the first gaming Chromebook showed up, but like these, like if I was gonna buy a Chromebook, I would want to get one of these, just because, again, the high refresh rate screen makes everything smoother just across the whole OS, and I like the light up keyboard. That's fun. And these look like not really this one specifically, but some of them have more ports than the average Chromebook. This has a full-size HDMI, which is kind of nice. So like if I was buying a Chromebook for like, normal Chromebook things, I would get one of these gaming ones. But buying one of these for gaming still seems very silly to me. Because like they didn't say how much this one will cost, but I checked, the one they announced last year had an MSRP of $700. It's on sale at Best Buy for $600 right now. And you can get real gaming laptops for that. Like they're like laptops right now you can buy that run Windows, and they have like a, GTX 1650, like some low end GPU. But that's a gaming that can play games.
Yeah. And
without a stable internet connection and a recurring subscription.
Yep.
And they still have the option of playing cloud games if you want to do that. And some of them have high refresh rate screens. Not a lot of them at this price point.
Yeah,
to be honest.
That's a bit more of a stretch, but still.
Yeah. And the battery life will be worse.
Yeah.
But not by a lot, because Intel's just really bad. But these are just so weird. Like, I feel like we've really gotten off the path for what cloud gaming was. Like, I thought the point of cloud gaming was you make the client device as cheap as possible, because you don't need good hardware for this. Like, that was the cool thing with Stadia. It worked on like the $30 Chrome. Well, not the $30 Chromecast. You needed the Ultra, but
I'm going to kind of play. It's not really devil's advocate here. I don't know. I'm playing whatever role we're gonna call it.
Right.
Maybe Stadia fanboy. I don't know. No, not really. So I would argue that, in my perspective, the purposes of cloud gaming were always not necessarily to make the client cheap, but to make it so the client doesn't need to be cutting edge.
Right.
So, like think back to obviously like Cyberpunk 2077 when it first came out. Look, remember how few PCs could actually play it well? Like that was one of the big jokes is the the older generation consoles could not either basically couldn't play it at all, or they had to play it at such low quality that they were just borderline unusable. Um, or like you had to have a new console, which nobody could get, or you had to have a PC, and you could play it at actually some pretty low, or not low, but you could play it at moderate settings, and it would play fine ish. Or you could play it at higher settings, which is what everyone was expecting to be able to do, and it was kind of like playing Crisis back in the day. Like you needed to have a really really decked out system to be able to raise those settings. Meanwhile, then there are people who are sitting there playing it on Stadia, and they're like, "Yo, I don't know what you guys are complaining about, but it looks pretty decent." And yeah, we're playing it on a thing that costs us $100 or less. So I think that's part of the argument. Is it was effectively the future proof version of the story. You could buy hardware today that could play cloud gaming stuff, and it was on the cloud gaming service to update and keep you from having to necessarily always be running the latest stuff. The other advantage of cloud gaming, I've always thought is you don't need to have storage or maintain or keep a library of discs or uh, the million other things that all factor in on just the experience. Plus, you didn't need to bring much hardware anywhere. You could theoretically go to a hotel room with just your controller and a little dongle, and you're good to go. Whereas literally anything else, the smallest option is to bring a laptop, because very few people, though I'm sure some people exist, like there are MKBHDs of the world for gaming who, well, he famously used to bring a Mac Pro with him to events so he could edit videos, like just ridiculously. So
Yeah, I've seen the backpacks designed to like fit a like mid tower PC in them.
yeah,
those exist.
yeah, exactly. Or people bringing their consoles with them on a flight. I'm sure they exist. These people happen, but most people don't do this. But if you're traveling for work or something like that, and you just want to be able to bring your cloud gaming gadgets, that's pretty lightweight and small and convenient. And if something happens to them, you're out a pretty small amount. Like if your bag gets stolen, oh well, that sucks, but you can live with it. If any of this stuff happens to like a computer or a console or whatever, bad times. So
Yeah.
and there were other arguments for cloud gaming too, but yeah, also cheap client was absolutely one of them, and I think that's the one that was the most realized out of all the things. But yes, to circle back to your point, should there be a quote unquote gaming Chromebook that is expensive? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if I was gonna buy a Chromebook, I'd buy one of these just because they seem reasonably well built, and the high refresh rate screen and light up keyboards are fun. But just the like Hoopy said, I thought the sales pitch for cloud gaming, or at least Stadia, was that you didn't need any special hardware for gaming. Anyone could engage with it. Yeah, it's just I just have I think it's really bizarre to like sell this as a gaming, specifically cloud gaming thing. That's just a very weird concept to me, because if I had $600 or $700 to budget a laptop and gaming was a priority, I don't know how I would ever get one of these. If I had $600 and my goal was I need a thin and light laptop with a good web browser and maybe can run some Android and Linux apps, sure. It's just the like very specific range here that's kind of weird to me. And it also just like it feels a little bit predatory. Not in like a like deceiving people way, because it's pretty obvious this is how it works, but like you're paying for the laptop and it comes with a few months of a cloud gaming subscription, but then you're going to have to keep paying for one of those
Right.
for the entire time you want to play games on this. And like obviously you can use that and play it on, you know, your phone too or whatever, but you're paying in perpetuity for this.
Well, in a roundabout way, this is sort of like very roundabout way. This is sort of like back when computers used to come with the online service.
Yeah, the AOL.
Yeah, usually AOL, but it could be others. There were a few, I suppose, the CompuServes or whatever. You know, it's the part of their business model is very possibly to sell these for a little bit cheaper, and every person who signs on, they're also going to get a kickback from the company. Like, oh good, you brought us this many new users, or new trial users or whatever, so we'll give you, you know, 10 or 20 or $30 per new user you bring us. And it's a decent sales pitch for them. I mean, internally, like they can sell something for a little bit cheaper, sort of, and maybe make back their money on what is effectively trials.
Right. Yeah, like that's the other thing here is like these aren't subsidized in any way by Nvidia or Amazon or whoever. You know, at least when you buy an Xbox, it's like way cheaper you could ever build a comparable PC.
Yeah.
But that's not what these are.
Well, at least at the beginning of it, most consoles' lives. Once you're close to the end of their life, yeah, just build a PC.
So these are very weird, and it's gonna get weirder and more confusing whenever Google finishes that Steam layer for Chrome OS, because like you're gonna need a better GPU for almost everything than Intel's, you know, what they're putting in these like 12th gen i5 and i3 chips, especially when you have both the overhead of Chrome OS and running everything in a VM. So your options are like running some local games poorly, or cloud gaming, or running Android apps. And I it's just very weird. I would never buy one of these to play games on.
Yeah,
again, I'd buy it if I needed a work laptop and I like Chrome OS, but that's about it.
Yeah, there really just isn't a good actual story behind this. And it really, I feel like I need to say, I'm not against the idea of a premium Chromebook. Like a higher priced Chromebook that just has some nice traits that make it nicer to use as a product. Like this could be anything from RGB to like a better keyboard, high refresh display, go down the list. It doesn't matter. Like if you're a person who says, look, I just want a Chromebook but super high res display because it's better for reading and it's better for my eyes, cheers. Yeah, go ahead, spend more on that display. That I get it. I will not judge this in the least. It totally makes sense to me. But yeah, the marketing concept of, hey, this is for cloud gaming, and we claim that we've made it good for that, but the ways that they made it good for that kind of don't really necessarily relate to cloud gaming at all.
Yeah.
Or the things that they've claimed are just kind of BS.
Yeah, and these are just really weird. I don't.
Out of curiosity, have they given a price for this thing?
Not this one. They're selling the one they made last year, which is almost identical except it's bigger. The MSRP on that one was I think $700.
Okay. I mean,
So I'm guessing this one might be like 600, which again, like for the specs, that's fine,
yeah,
for a laptop. Like if I needed, again, if I wanted a Chromebook, I would
yeah.
probably buy one of these because the pricing's not that bad.
But yeah,
I
you
just would
could
not.
go buy a Windows machine for cheap, for about the same price, and get
Yeah,
maybe not the display, but yeah, you could get other things that are probably better. So yeah,
yeah. Chromebooks have never had the value argument above like the $300-$400 price range. After that, you're just choosing which OS you like more,
yep,
and you're going to pay about the same.
yeah, and
Um,
I wouldn't come down too hard on this price wise. It's also just not
yeah,
something I would
yeah. I mean,
recommend.
like if this seems perfectly fine if you like Chrome OS and you want a good laptop. It's just don't buy this to play games. If you really want to play games, you buy literally anything else. Or you buy a, whatever laptop you have right now and sign up for GeForce Now. And that way you're spending just the subscription. You're not buying an entire new computer.
I would even argue that with this, spend an extra what, $100 or $200, get a MacBook Air.
Yeah, get a MacBook Air to game on. I mean,
you can do just as much cloud gaming. You're going to get better speakers. Objectively, you're getting better speakers. You're gonna get
better battery life.
Way better battery life. Probably better keyboard.
Maybe
you won't get as many ports.
No,
but only
ports.
barely.
No
honestly.
ports.
But you're getting something that can run more software.
Yes, Mac does not have a lot of games, but it does have some. Yeah, I play Planet Coaster on my MacBook Air, and it does run.
Yeah.
And you can run some Windows games on there. It's about the same. It's better than a Chromebook, but again, like if you need a gaming laptop, just buy a gaming laptop. You're not
pretty much, yeah.
You're not gonna find a weird hack that gets around you. It lets you have a thin and light laptop that can play games locally.
Also, the support story is just a million times better with Apple. As long as you've got access to an Apple store,
yes,
that's just gonna be better than what you can.
Whereas with this, if you show up to the Best Buy Geek Squad and you say, "Hello, I bought a gaming Chromebook," they will laugh at you in your face.
Okay, I think you're overestimating those people, but I take your meaning.
That's true. They probably would sell you at first. And then
yeah, they would sell this to you because even they buy into the market hype.
Yeah.
But hey,
Austin said I'm hoarding Pixel books. Yeah, I mean, we haven't had a new Pixel book in a hot minute. Don't know. That's a fun, cool thing with the ecosystem. But yeah, so silly Chromebooks. There was like a lot of like TVs and displays and stuff. I saw Samsung came out with a couple more monitors that look kind of neat. They made or actually I can send you the oh shit, I forgot the source link in this article. Where did I get this from?
Do we care?
I mean, I care just a tiny bit. We can talk about it for like 5 minutes.
Okay, I just don't know what to say about that stuff. They're TVs.
Well, I was gonna bring up monitors. I really can't be asked to care about TVs.
Okay.
Yeah, these are a little bit more interesting. I'm gonna click. I need to put the source link in this before I forget. But Samsung announced a couple new monitors. One of them is this. They made some headlines. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but they started making these wackadoodle super mega wide Odyssey monitors, and they made more of those. One of these, and
I keep maintaining that these only exist for two purposes. Is this what you were going to talk about?
You finish your point. I'm not
Okay.
sure.
I think they only exist for two purposes. One is to put them in movies, and two is to send them to YouTubers. No one is going to see this in a YouTube video and go, "Oh my god, I need to have this." But by virtue of YouTubers going, "Oh my god, I love how cool this thing is," like they're gonna talk it up, they're gonna hype it like crazy, and by virtue of them talking so much about this monitor, it will very possibly drive people to go buy from Samsung. In this instance, it could be any company, but I've seen it so many times. They love sending stuff to really well-known YouTubers because they will end up hyping it. That is, in my mind, the only reason they make stuff like this.
Yeah, I do think it would be kind of fun. Like, I wonder at what point could I buy one of these monitors and open Audacity, and then when I'm editing a podcast, I don't have to zoom in at all. Just have the entire length of the audio file open.
I
need a
picturing
little bit
you
wider.
with a screen that literally just wraps around you.
Yeah.
You just swivel your chair when you want to see different parts.
Yeah, that'd be fun. So yeah, those are kind of goofy. There was also a little bit further down. There's the Viewfinity S9, which I saw some places were comparing this to the Apple Studio display. Is that what they call it? I forget. The one they did last year with the Mac Studio.
I think that's
I think
right.
it's the Studio display, yeah. But it does look. It looks like it, but also all monitors kind of look the same, so that's not. That's not that big of a deal. But it does have a 5K 27-inch screen. It's got all the color gamuts, so supposedly it's good for creative work.
But really quick, just to confirm, it is the Studio display, and previously they also had the Pro Display XDR, but no one should ever get that.
Yeah. So this is kind of a Samsung little bit like that. It does support like USB-C and Thunderbolt stuff. It has a little tiny integrated camera. I don't know if that's the one in the Apple Studio display is surprisingly bad with how much they have that up. So I don't, it might be better than that. It probably wouldn't take too much work. But kind of the interesting thing with that one, and also the Smart Monitor M8 below that, is these both have Samsung Smart Hub software. So functionally, these work like a smart TV. They've taken their smart TV software and they've added keyboard and mouse support to some of the apps. So you could they bring up you can use like Google Meet on this without even plugging in another computer. I think most people are probably going to plug in another computer.
Yeah.
But it's like kind of neat. Like this again goes back to the thin client idea of like cloud gaming stuff. Like you can open, they support, I think, Luna and GeForce Now on their Smart Hub software. So you could like do, cloud gaming on one of these if you wanted without plugging anything in. And honestly, if I was still using Linux all the time, the Smart Monitor M8 would look really tempting to me, because I did see they support like some cool picture-in-picture stuff. So one of the problems with desktop Linux is that none of the fucking streaming services want to support full resolution video. So like I could totally like be using my Linux desktop and put the Samsung Netflix app in the corner and watch that, or switch to it. And if I want to take my lunch break, I'll turn off the Linux side and watch a show in glorious full resolution on my smart monitor. But now I'm on Mac, which mostly doesn't have that issue. I've seen some of the streaming services are still iffy on, Chrome or whatever. But that is a cool thing. And hi, Carson is here. Hello, and Curvy Mermaid. Hello.
Yes, I've been a bad host by skipping over saying hi to names, but hey, Carson, Curvy, Austin, Hoopy, and up above, of course, Scuttlefield. Thanks, guys, for coming by.
Yes. So yeah, that was Samsung's monitors. They're kind of cool.
So yeah, well, cheers to Samsung. That's some nice products. If anything, I'd be kind of curious about the color calibrated display for the Viewfinity S9. Just because it would be so nice to have something that's better colored than the display I have. The catch is it's not ultra wide, so it would be a little bit of a pain to use. But
yeah, every time these look cool, and I was also writing an article about a Dell monitor that's a lot like this. I think it was also 5K or 6K, but it was in the same form factor, and also had a built-in webcam, and it had some cool like mixing input support, and like those are really cool. But I cannot not do ultra wide on my desktop. Like it helps so much. Like I've had this one Dell ultra wide monitor for like 5 years now, probably, and it's like only 1080p and it's only 60 hertz, but it's so nice. It's like when I'm writing an article, and I'm not even talking about gaming, just doing my normal ass work. I have a 4x3 window with WordPress on one side, and whatever I'm writing about in the other 4x3 space on the other, and it's great.
Yeah, no, it's
nothing gets squished. It all looks great.
Yeah,
like right now I've got you on one side. I've got what we're talking about on the other side in your chat, like in the little corner. It's amazing.
Oh, believe me, similar story. I have you in a window over to my right. To my left, I have the page open that is what everyone sees at the background right now. In the center, I have the YouTube dashboard with chat, and then that's in the upper like 2/3 of the screen. Then on the far right side in the lower portion, OBS, and on the far left side, Discord, open to a few different channels that I bounce around between. So yeah, and then I've actually got a blank space in the center because big display, super wide. I have space to spread everything out and have it all there. And I have very little window overlap, but some. Yeah, this just wouldn't happen with a smaller display. It just wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, this is the main reason why I do work slower on a laptop, because I can't have an ultra-wide laptop.
Yeah.
And like I do have another, like monitor I can bring with me and plug in if I need to, but that's still not the same thing.
Well, or an iPad.
Yeah, I could do that now. I don't think I've tried that, but
I've heard people say it's not that good, and it's like I think they're wrong. I haven't tried it myself, but it just does. The complaints I always hear, though, are almost always people doing it wirelessly, which stands out to me as probably their problem. It's funny, too, every time I've said, well, have you tried connecting it just by wire? And they almost always say, oh yeah, I don't have problems when I do that, but I don't want to do that. And it's like, well, that's your problem. Literally, just connect it by wire and all of your complaints go away. Is it really that bad to connect by wire? I guess it is. In the Apple ecosystem, Johnny Ive has ruled wires are evil.
Well, I've got only the 2 ports. You have to use them sparingly.
But yeah, anyway, so that's neat. Speaking of Apple, which we have seemingly done to no end, but we're going to turn this into at least an Android conversation. MagSafe is happening, apparently. So I hear. Tell us about it.
Yeah, let me get the...
You were about as prepared as I was for this.
No, I've got it open. It's just I have to look for the tab. And there's the link, and I'll give you the This is the original press release. Yeah, so kind of a surprise, at least to me, was the Wireless Power Consortium, which is the industry group that maintains Qi charging, announced Qi 2. You know, if Qi charging is so good, why isn't there a second one? Well, now there is. And really, the main difference here is that Qi 2 is literally just MagSafe. So now all of the magnet stuff, which they're calling Qi 2 magnetic power profile, that locks in your phone to plug in, that's supposedly an open standard now. They say devices with it will be sold worldwide this year, so I don't know if it's early enough where the Galaxy S23 could maybe have Qi 2. I don't know. Probably some other phones this year, I would imagine. Maybe some tablets too, perhaps. But Kirby said, did they increase charging wattage? I think that's still up to the manufacturer. This is mostly, I think Qi is still really only in charge of like the base speed that like everything's based on, which I think is 7.5 watts. I think is what normal Qi maxes out at, and then after that it needs something else on top. But yeah, I mean, well, like in theory, OnePlus or whoever could pair this with their faster wireless charging. The main thing is just that like all the magnet stuff is open now. And there's been some other, there's been obviously a few cases and stuff, like a Moment sells cases with the MagSafe magnets in it. I had that on with my S21 for a while. It's cool.
Yeah, it's actually quite nice.
Yeah, so
Moment does it, Peak Design does it. There definitely are more, but I can't think of any of the others.
Yeah, and I've seen like some like stickers that kind of replicate that. You can put on anything, it doesn't need a case. But yeah, so that's cool. I still don't really like MagSafe as like a charging replacement. I think it's just a minor upgrade over wireless charging, but it is really helpful for like car mounts and tripod mounts and that kind of stuff. Like I've had my my Moment tripod mount that uses MagSafe, and when I had that with my S21 with the MagSafe case, it is so much nicer than all of those stupid clamp things that always accidentally press the volume buttons on my phone.
Yep.
So cool stuff.
Yeah. No, so this is definitely good. I like that I like that this is happening. The only thing I think I find disappointing is, if I recall, I'm pretty confident that I'm not misremembering this. I believe Apple's MagSafe also allowed for data, and this, as far as I can tell, is just charging. I don't think it was a lot of data, but yeah, I think they did support data transfer in regular MagSafe between like an iPhone and whatever.
Well, I mean, I in theory, there's like, I think there's some amount of data in regular Qi because it has to negotiate a charging speed, but
right,
yeah, I'm sure it's different.
Yeah, that's talking really, really minimal. So I mean, I'm not complaining a lot here. It's just one of those things that stands out as, hey, it'd be kind of neat if they made that part of it. So that said, like outside of a minor detail, I do think that this is good because at the very least, this basically opens the door for accessory makers to just simply make a single product and it will apply to anyone that wants to put this into their phones. Obviously, it's not like this suddenly unlocks phones to just magically start having it. We all know that, but yeah, now it's just a matter of every company can start putting MagSafe into their phones. I see nothing bad in that equation. The only possible complaint is this might cause a lot more people to start using wireless charging, which is ultimately bad for their long-term battery life. That's about it. Like, that's the only bad news here.
Yeah, and they do say at the very bottom, they say Qi 2 certified mobile phones and chargers are expected to be available for the 2023 holiday season. So
yeah,
that probably means S23 is off the table. That probably means like Kirby brought up Pixel 9. That might be cutting it close. I don't know.
well, the Pixel 8 probably will not. The Pixel 9 probably will.
Oh yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I thought we were already at 8.
Yeah, okay. That is, I think, what Kirby meant, was skipping the Pixel 8, going to the Pixel 9. It'll probably have it.
Austin said, which China OEM will beat Apple to going portless? I mean, Xiaomi really likes doing wacky hardware stuff that isn't practical, and then everyone copies them 2 years later. So I'm gonna go with probably them if they haven't already. Well, I feel like they might have.
And it won't be Huawei, because they are famously in real trouble. They're barely even keeping their well, I don't want to say smartphone division, but Huawei is apparently, just as a company, they are financially screwed. So
Huawei will go portless because they cannot obtain ports.
Yes, that's actually not an impossibility. OnePlus, I don't see OnePlus doing it. OnePlus has just lost all their edge lately. So no, I think you're right.
OnePlus will do it when they can charge even more money for their stupid wireless charger.
No. But I think you're right. Xiaomi, if any Chinese OEM is going to do it, it's Xiaomi, 100%. If any other OEM is going to do it, I just throwing this out there. Just have to throw this out there because I think it's hilarious to think. Imagine if Sony did it. I mean, we were talking about a company that literally just released, not just, but has in recent times released a phone with a full-size HDMI port.
Yeah, they also like doing weird stuff.
But
I could see that.
They're also the company that might turn around and say, you know what? We can do it. We have all the technology. Yeah, sure, let's just try a portless phone. Why not?
Yeah, no one buys these anyway.
Exactly. No one's bought a Sony phone in years. It makes sense. We may as well just try to make some news with it. Actually, you know what? This is... Oh, God. Okay. Also, Sharp. Sharp has been, in the craziest way, they have led the pack on so many things. The various Sharp Aquos, I don't know how to say it. But the Sharp Aquos phones, those things, they were the first to come out with a like edge-to-edge display. They were the first to come out with... Were they the first one that had a punch hole? Or I know they weren't the first to do a notch. They were one of the first to the like full screen phone thing. Yeah, okay. But yeah, they did a lot of firsts. They were also the first to one of the thicknesses or thinnesses, I guess, whatever. They were the first to a whole bunch of stuff. But no one gives them credit because like a couple of the phones never even actually came out. Like you couldn't even buy them. And there were a few they announced them like you'd be able to buy them, and then they just never materialized. And then most of the others, even if they came out, does anyone know how or where to buy one? They've never been in carrier stores. I don't think they sold through their website. I think like do you have to buy them from like special importers or something? Or maybe they who was the drug dealer's brother who sells phones? Oh my god, why can't I'm totally blanking on his name. But you know what I'm talking about. I'm
Escobar,
sure
right?
Escobar, yeah. Yeah. Maybe Escobar is the sole retailer for Sharp Aquos phones. Anyway, I could actually legitimately see them do a portless phone and, you know, just brag about it. That'd be kind of great, actually.
And Curry said some leakers have said Apple is having problems with portless with doing that by the iPhone 17 like Apple wants to. So first of all, I'm still in the I'll believe it when I see it stage about USB-C iPhone, even though basically everyone is saying that at this point. There's more people saying it this year, but also people have been saying that for every year for the past like 5 years. So I'll believe it when I see it. First of all, I think if that actually happens, I don't really see them going portless anytime soon, unless they do like a wackadoodle like separate iPhone model like the X was originally, where it's just like a weird thing they made positioned as a super high-end thing. Because I don't think they would go Type-C and make everyone buy new cords and chargers and stuff, and then the next year or even
this exactly
2-3 years, I don't think they do. Like they always, every time they've done this, they've waited many years in between new ports. Like we had several years of 30-pin iPhones, and then we've now had a lot of years of Lightning phones.
Apple does not make very many decisions that are short-lived. As proof, just look at how long the Touch Bar lasted. I mean, this is something that came out and pretty, I won't say universally, because there were definitely people that liked it. I liked it. Not how they intended it, but I did like it. But yeah, they stuck to the Touch Bar even long past the point where everyone was convinced it was dead and gone. So, you know, Apple, when they do something, they're intending for those decisions to last, mostly. So yeah, if they put a USB-C port in an iPhone, and I really think they will, that I think is going to be at minimum 5 years. 5 generations of iPhones will have a USB-C port, probably more. And honestly, I think they'll put one in just because it is too early for them to make the switch to all wireless, and by virtue of the fact that it is too early, but they're being forced to make that change. I think they're gonna own it and just go USB-C. And plus, this is something so many people are asking them to do anyway. People want them to do USB-C. People are begging them to do USB-C. How many people are begging them to do portless? It's like there's some small contingent of YouTubers who love to do renders. They're the only ones asking Apple to go portless. Everyone else is pointing to it and saying, no, please don't. You're going to ruin your product by going portless. I think most sane people are with them. Even most people at Apple probably agree it's a bad idea.
Yeah, well, I think really the only argument for portless I've seen is because like obviously it doesn't matter for waterproofing or whatever. Like they've done a pretty good job at that. I've seen one of the main arguments is like, if there's no port, then what do the police plug your phone into when they take it from you to try to get data off of it? But like I don't even really see, if they go portless, that there won't be any kind of like physical interface. Like you said, like MagSafe does data, so as long as there's like some kind of hardware data port that, you know, is going to be used for like when you take your phone to the Apple App Store and you need to get your data off of it, whatever. Unless they just fully get rid of that, which I think would be pretty difficult. That also doesn't matter.
It's not implausible, but it's not ideal. It would
right.
it
like
would
even
introduce
the
some problems.
or they would do it like the Apple Watch, where like there's one, but you have to take it like half apart.
Yeah.
To get to. So that like they haven't done that on any of their products. Like all of them have,
excluding
some port somewhere for Well, I mean, like even with the watch, like all of them have some ports somewhere for diagnostic, because
Okay, but
Apple
so
Store
could the
people.
phone.
That's what I mean. Like I think even it would require them going further than portless, and I don't really see them doing that for a phone. That doesn't really seem practical right now.
Well, it seems to me less than ideal for well, the examples. Okay, so I know I'm picking out such a narrow group, but I think this group has to be counted, because it's a group Apple still wants to court, even if it's talked about a little bit less. It's YouTubers. God, I hate constantly going back and using this as the sample group, but it counts. It's there. But YouTubers, imagine a YouTuber hopping on a plane and being like, "Oh man, I wanted to edit all my videos on my MacBook, but while I was on the plane, I couldn't. They told us to turn off all your wireless devices and stuff like that. So, here I am, like I can't transfer all of my stuff between the phone and the Mac because I don't have a cable, and I'm not supposed to use wireless, which of course is all BS, but let's ignore that detail. Like I get this. I really get this argument of if they cut out the ports entirely, they're not going to have a good way of transferring stuff by wireless that is going to be reliable in a congested environment, that's not going to have problems with security or other concerns. And at some point, it just makes sense. You want to still have a wire. So I think they'll stick with the cable, just because it avoids some of the bad publicity moments that will come along. That's it.
I mean, I hope the USB-C thing is real, because like I could be interested in buying a non-SE iPhone, but like I'm not doing that while they're still using Lightning.
Right.
Like, I'm just like I bought a new iPhone SE, which like I got the one higher tier up on storage, so it was like $500, something around there, and like that's about the max I would pay for a phone that's not USB-C.
Yeah.
Like I really hate Lightning. It was always stupid. It's especially stupid now that all of Apple's other shit uses Type-C. Like I'm plugging in my MacBook and my iPad into the one cable that can also do all of my other phones, but not the iPhone for some reason. It's a very stupid connector.
Also,
and it's clear it's really only there right now because of Apple's invested in it.
Yeah.
That's the only reason.
Also, when it comes to an accessory ecosystem, they certainly, absolutely, if they went portless, they could still do an accessory ecosystem that is based around like MagSafe and portless communication and all that stuff. That is an option. They could do it. But I think they have better opportunities going connected with a wire for an accessory ecosystem. And I think that's just more maintainable, more sustainable, and they can still have like USB-C. Just because your port is the same shape, it doesn't mean that you couldn't still have, like Apple could still have their own program for things that are made for iPhone, and they can still charge anyone to put that logo on, and they can still test it and verify it and make it exclusive. All of these things are still options. Going USB-C doesn't preclude any of this. It just means that their iPhone will work with more hardware. That doesn't feel like a terrible thing.
Right. It's like what they do with every replacement part right now. We're like, yeah, you can buy a third-party iPhone battery, but your iPhone will remind you that you cheaped out every single time you turn it on.
Yes. And what is it? Like, don't some of your security measures stop working if you do that? Or is that just the displays? I know that happens with the display.
I think it's just the display, because the display has like the Face ID stuff in it. But yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, right to repair my ass. Anyway.
Yeah, I was writing about that earlier this week, because New York passed the first right to repair bill of any state in the U.S. that, like, in the like modern interpretation, not counting like laws from decades ago that says like, you know, other stuff that isn't helpful now. And of course, like, there's so many exceptions. Like, I think, hold on, I actually wrote about this. I should pull that. This can be the last thing I talk about, and then I need to go because my dog needs to go pee and I need food. So let's see. Okay, so there's that, and I'll send it to you. Yeah, this was the Digital Fair Repair Act, and it in theory requires manufacturers to make their like repair manuals and diagnostic stuff available, but only for new products, which is like, I guess that's kind of fair.
Yeah,
to
that's
an extent,
that. I'll stand behind that being fair.
Yeah, because like you need to do things differently to retroactively apply that, and also most laws don't apply retroactively in general.
It depends, but in cases like this, yeah, there are good reasons why you don't try to do this retroactively on products.
Yeah. So, and then there's other things that are not really fair. There's a bunch of exceptions, including some like home appliances. I wasn't really sure what that meant. Motor vehicles, so you can get fucked if your car breaks down, or you want to repair something in your own car. Off-road equipment, like construction and mining equipment, which is kind of funny. Mainly that's for farmers.
I was gonna say this is 100% about John Deere.
This is 1000% John Deere. Like, if you want to repair your own tractor, you can still go fuck yourself.
They will.
John Deere will never let you have that.
Yeah.
John Deere will come to your house and break your kneecaps if you try to do that.
Kind of literally.
Yeah.
They might send lawyers to do it, but yeah, your kneecaps are actually officially theirs.
Yeah. And in the text I read, I think this was the final text. They said the bill must, quote, make available to the owner and to independent repair providers on fair and reasonable terms any special documentation, tools, or parts needed to access and reset the lock or function when disabled in the course of diagnosis, maintenance, or repair of the equipment. Quote, which is supposed to mean, like, in the case of like iPhones, Apple is supposed to tell you like how to like enter diagnostic mode and like make sure the parts work and like tell you how to take the iPhone apart. But like, I'm sure in court they can argue that stupid giant rental machine you need to take apart an iPhone for self-repair that they started doing last year counts as that. Like, they're not, it doesn't really go far enough there.
Okay, but what I do consider kind of interesting about this is it does sort of open the door for a lot more what would effectively be penetration testing, and it would allow for a lot of new sort of unlock and hacking methods, especially ones that once you have accomplished the thing you are trying to do, you could re-enable features so that you could still theoretically get back a lot of the things that you would normally lose by unlocking the phone. Which I'm going to count that as a good thing.
Yeah, there's good things here. I liked iFixit's write-up about this. They kind of talked about when France passed a similar law that was like it like rated electronics based on how repairable they were, and like if you want to have a higher ranking on your box, you have to like publish the like repair manuals and stuff. And that was the first time a lot of companies publish repair manuals, and like that, like obviously you can't be like, no, you can only get this manual if you're in France. They just put it online and then anyone can access it. So this is good, and it also will be good for people in other states, because like there's not a lot of electronics that are only sold in the state of New York. So a lot of stuff sold here will probably have more repair stuff available. It's just not nearly good enough.
Right.
But
I was just suddenly imagining if Apple was to try to do that. I can imagine they would not release the manuals in France online. Rather, they would set up a small kiosk in a city that's like 8 hours from any nearby airport, and they would only open the kiosk for like 12 minutes a day, 1 day a week, and they'd be like, hey, we released everything you need, you just have to go buy it from that location. Oh, by the way, the price tag is $899, and you have to have a Apple developer account, and I don't know. I'm sure
the stand isn't anywhere on Maps, and if you like try to put in the address to Apple Maps, it will take you to the wrong place on purpose.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Or shut down your iPhone.
The moment you said that, it's like, well, I mean, if it was in Apple Maps, it'd lead you the wrong direction anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's the one place where they never bothered to fix like huge cliffs just magically appearing in the maps, and it would navigate you around towns instead of into them.
Yeah, so it's good, but again, this isn't like example number 5,000 where anything good has to have a million carve outs to pass through anything.
Yeah,
so, not great.
Yeah, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it'd be nice if it was a little bit more forceful. That said, I'm starting to come to, after, sorry, this will briefly pass into something that's political, but after watching what's happened in Oregon with ballot measure 114, this is a gun control bill that basically adds, depending on where you stand, it either adds some pretty reasonable new policies, or it is completely off the hinges, off the rails madness that is destroying our country, blah blah blah, whatever those people say. And there are a few people who will come down on the side of, okay, there's a few things that they might have pushed a little hard, but for the most part, it's all good. Anyway, watching as local judges just pass rulings basically saying, yeah, we don't like this thing, screw it, we're just going to stop it in its tracks, has left me with the feeling that the trick 9 times out of 10 is to not pass the law that actually is going to do anything, but instead pass a law that is completely toothless and weak like this one, and then come back to it in a year or 2 or 4 or something like that and fix it. And by fix it, I mean, just add in all the clauses that you actually needed to have there to begin with. Because now that the law is passed and you're just making very minor trivial changes, yeah, let's be honest, it kind of works around that, and no judge is going to dismantle it because you fixed the loopholes.
Right, like you start out with you sort of create a problem where it's like, oh, we have a law, but it doesn't really work. We need to make sure it works. Yeah, I see.
Yeah, you just add the parts you need in order to make it work after you've already passed the part that no one's going to object to because it's toothless.
Right. Yeah, I mean that'd be good. I saw, New York's passed a couple other laws recently that are nice. Like they're not letting, I think it's crypto mining farms that need power generators. They like paused all approvals for those, which I like. That's good, but also yeah, like that's good, but also it seems like that's going out of like a lot of these crypto mining companies are like filing for bankruptcy at this point because it's almost impossible for that to be profitable in any way. Mm-hmm. But yeah, definitely still, good. Make sure those don't come back.
Yeah, I'm okay with the idea of just demolishing crypto mining entirely. It doesn't fix that most crypto is a scam, or all. The jury's still out on if it's most or all, but and it doesn't really solve the fact that crypto in and of itself, most of it still is very, very energy inefficient and very processor hungry. So, process hungry, not necessarily processor. But yeah, it doesn't really fix a lot of the problems, but it does at least prevent us from making the worst of the problems much worse.
Yeah, it's very like I saw there was an article somewhere that was talking about how Ethereum switched to a different mechanism a couple months ago where it's not like mining now, it's a different thing, but like even that is still kind of
it's
wild on energy usage. Like if it was scaled up to like what a bank does, it would still be ridiculous. And this is definitely a time in human history where we should maybe not be introducing new things that don't really solve any problems but use way more electrical power. We need to tone it back on the coal plants now.
Yeah, everyone bags on California for the move to electric cars, and there are some actual valid complaints there, but everyone loves to make fun of, oh my god, California is having brownouts still, how do they expect to power their cars? Well, you know what, maybe if there weren't crypto miners in California, that might not be a problem. Maybe if those people were stopped in the first place, power wouldn't be as big of a problem. Just saying.
Also, if we stop privatizing power grids, like like that's a really cool, fun thing that keeps happening, and that's been fun here in North Carolina, where Duke Energy just continues to fuck up constantly. Like a couple, I think it's a month ago now or 2 months, where someone shot up some Duke Energy power stations and took out a town's electricity for a whole week, and it took them forever to fix that. But then more recently, when that big cold wave went through the East Coast, bunch of people lost power here, and Duke Energy was doing rolling blackouts. Like this is a third world country.
Yep, they were doing it intentionally.
Very, very cool, normal things. And of course, they were like, "Oh well, everyone's just using so much energy, and all of our, stuff was not working right, and blah 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 blah."
Wait, is that the reason?
I saw they had some excuse, like it was mostly nonsense. Like they were talking about how like some of their equipment was failing, but like they've supposedly weatherproofed their systems, so I don't know why that was an issue.
Okay, but there's in California, this has happened a few times, and the reasons given, this is one of those times where it's like, it kind of sounds like BS, but it's also actually a pretty realistic, reasonable thing. They basically said, look, due to like either high winds or expectation of high winds or expectation of high temperatures, that our equipment actually could, like, it could actually legitimately cause failures in lines, or this situation or that situation that might cause lines to literally break and fall down, which could start fires. For that reason, we are turning off power between these times, because we don't want power running through lines if there's a real risk that they're going to fall down and start a forest fire. So that's actually a pretty credible reason. I was assuming Duke was doing it for something like that. I didn't realize that they were basically just saying, "Oh yeah, our equipment sucks, and we think it might fail and cost us more money." Like, they're not. If they didn't justify it as, "Oh, it could cause a fire," that's not a good reason to shut off power when people are freezing.
Yeah, I just pulled up a article from our local news where they were asking someone from Duke, and they said under normal circumstances, Duke is usually able to get backup power from other utilities nearby, but widespread cold across the south and blizzard conditions to the north meant those others did not have help to give. So some of their generators failed, and then they couldn't find power elsewhere, which, like, again, like, I can excuse a little bit of this because this is just like a thing the entire world is having now, where like you used to really only have to build things for like one kind of weather condition and like a variable of like, you know, couple degrees in there, but now everywhere just has fucking crazy climate. Like, you know, like the entirety of Europe is having problems because none of them have AC because they didn't need it. Now they do. And the same thing in, like, you know, Northwest, you know, down here in the South, we have AC mostly because it's intolerable otherwise. But now that's, you know, other stuff is not built for, you know, super cold temps. But yeah, no, it's like, again, like, I can excuse a little bit, but it's when they keep fucking up repeatedly about a bunch of different things. And also Duke was like, you know, dumping like coal residue into the rivers around here a couple of years ago and that kind of stuff. It's like, all right, we're done.
Yeah.
And then you still want to charge me crazy amounts for electricity. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, privatizing power grids was a mistake when it is neither cheap nor reliable. I think we messed up somewhere.
Oh, well, don't even say that around Texas. It's not cheap, it's not reliable, and holy crap, they are fans of privatizing. Actually, I don't think any person in Texas actually cares about privatizing the power grid. They'd rather it just be on the main grid. But yeah,
I remember reading when Texas was having one of their freezes, a crypto mining company was actually able to make a bunch of money because they sold power back to the state or whatever the power company was, like unused power, which is very cool. It seems like a normal system.
I mean, it's at least they had it. I'm not happy that about who it was that made money, but hey, at least they had the power to sell back. Also, we have David live from Las Vegas.
David said Cody Big Energy apology.
Yes.
That's true.
David, how's CES treating you? Corbin, I don't know if you caught this, but David is there. I believe it was his girlfriend who has who had a reason to actually be at CES, so he's there helping out or hanging out, something to that effect. And so he's doing the trip that you would like to do someday, except he doesn't have to actually work it, or doesn't have to go from event to event covering it, rather.
Right. Doesn't have to talk to every PR person. Nope.
Yeah.
My dog just grabbed a squeaky toy.
So yeah, David, tell Corbin if you are enjoying the crowds.
Tell me what super variant of COVID you get.
Yes. Have you actually picked up super COVID, RSV, and the flu all at once? It doesn't count if you don't have all three. This is sort of like getting an EGOT. It doesn't count until you've gotten all of them.
I actually hope you don't get any super COVID.
Agreed.
That would not be fun. Don't do that.
Yeah, that would be bad.
I'm sending your immune system the best possible vibes.
Okay, you could rely on vibes, or my recommendation is just alcohol. Rub it on your hands and find the other kind and drink it. And yeah.
Don't mix those up.
Well, I mean, you could rub both kinds on your hands. That's okay.
Yeah. Just don't drink the wrong one.
Yeah, definitely don't drink the wrong one. That's how you go blind. It also tastes like terrible, from what I hear. So yeah, hopefully all is going well there, though.
And she got the squeaker.
Yes, she does.
Yeah. Well, I don't really have anything else to discuss, and my butt kind of hurts, and I'm hungry, so I'm probably gonna go now.
Oh, okay. Well, I had 2 topics, but if you're gonna take off,
yeah, I probably need to. I'm already kind of running on fumes, so I might just fall asleep on camera, which would be pretty funny, but also not funny for me.
Yeah, we won't talk about that. So yeah, fine, be that way, this slacker. But anyway, anything you want to pitch before you go?
No, except listen to Tech Tales.
There will be someday.
Yes.
A new Internet Explorer episode.
Yes, at techtalesshow.com, I believe. I'm more than halfway through editing part 5. And then there will be more parts at some point. And David said he went through the tunnel, the Tesla tunnel.
Was it as boring as the name implies?
So talk about boring and disappointing. Wow. I don't know how Elon will recover from that.
Honestly, now that he's the first person to ever lose, how much did he lose? I don't know. However much he lost.
A lot of money.
Is what, 200 billion?
It's some wild number that I will never see in my life.
Yeah.
So at a certain point, it just gets to imaginary numbers.
But yeah, now that he has lost more money than any person in history, I think the unimpressive tunnels will probably be the least of his worries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he really did pay a lot of money and then be like one of the only services in modern history to lose lots of active users to an open source alternative.
Yes.
So shout out to him for that. Yeah. What's he gonna do? Ban me from Twitter? He will. He will, or he'll give you a new worse checkmark color. He's gonna make a new checkmark color. I saw the jokes that the yellow check mark is for piss. So you might get that one.
Maybe he'll make a brown check mark next for the poopy heads.
The poopy check mark.
Oh, the Twitter poopy heads. That'll be his mark for you, Taylor Lorenz, and I don't know, probably AOC. AOC.
Yeah. And then libs of TikTok will get a new gold check mark for being the best transphobia on the website.
Ah, yes.
Also, oh fuck, what's her name? Harry Potter lady. J.K. Rowling.
Yeah.
J.K. Rowling and libs of TikTok will both get the gold check mark, and David will get the poopy head check mark.
God. The terrible thing is, I can honestly see this happening. Like, very
No,
literal
they keep adding new colors. It's like new check mark just dropped every week.
You know, I'm still surprised that they haven't gone to putting multiple things stacked. Well, they briefly did, but I want them to actually have like a bunch of stuff stacked. I made this joke on Twitter already. Like,
I think if you pay for Twitter Blue, I think they should just give you a color picker. You can pick your own checkmark color.
Yeah, no, that works. Which, just watch as somebody's like, I'm just gonna make it black on black, okay? I want my check mark. I just don't want anyone to see it because then they'll bullet. And
then it looks like a spot on your screen, like the people that set their profile pic to like a hair, and you're like, oh, I gotta get that off my screen.
Yeah,
I fall for that on too many occasions. That does work on me.
I can't say I've fallen for that.
Although it usually has to be on like a laptop or something. But yeah.
Well, I don't really fall for that one just because I do a lot of scrolling, and so 9 times out of 10, by the time I even see whatever is the fake thing, I've already scrolled the screen, and so I've already seen it moving with the scroll. So
yeah, so I'll leave you to be assassinated by Elon. He's gonna post your assassination coordinates.
Yes, he will.
Yeah,
and we we actually know that they have them because Twitter was stealing, or stealing GPS coordinates. So that sounds about right.
Yeah. Well, you have fun. I will go now.
All right, man. Well, take it easy.
Goodbye.
And catch you in the next one.
Yes. Goodbye.
Okay, so I promised more topics. I have more topics. As soon as I get onto the right things. So these are the two things that popped up obviously in chat. So we may as well just bust right into the Apple thing. We'll come back to the Android thing in a little bit, but the Apple thing, the AR VR headset that they are of course definitely coming out with very soon, or someday, or not at all, but probably not soon, but not too far away, maybe, possibly. Anyway, the current version, or the current concept render, just going to quickly call this out because I feel the need to do so. There are two things that stand out to me about this concept render. The first, there's no spot for a nose. Now, these could be upside down, but that would be really weird for a concept render. So yeah, I'm just saying, where the hell does a person's nose go? Yeah, just need a solution for that. Noses would be good. The second thing that stands out to me is actually the headband. This headband, I don't know how many people noticed this, but it happens to be distantly similar to another product that Apple happens to make. You guys might have maybe seen this before. It's sort of reminiscent to the good old AirPods Max. The headband on that just kind of has that same, like, it comes up as a single strap in the case of the AR VR headset, and as, I guess, tubes, whatever, and then splits off into the double parallel shape, and then, you know, merges back together. Oops. So I'm half expecting that this will start looking more and more like the AirPods Max headband someday. It just hasn't yet. Just in time for the good topics. I like to think so. Um, so yeah, I think that's gonna be probably the direction they go. It would make more sense to me. All right. Anyway, so the information came out with this basically kind of like the current state of this product. Um, let's see. The current headband looks awful. Reminds you of the default Apple Watch band, and the thing always tugged on my hair. Imagine on a head of hair. Yeah. No, that's that would be awful. But okay, so they basically, the information had a bunch of different points. We'll kind of run through these because most of these not super interesting, but there were a couple of takeaways I got out of a few of them. For one, so they're using a waist-mounted battery connected via a magnetic MagSafe-like power cable to the headset's headband. One battery charge lasts no longer than 2 hours, but users can swap the battery out for longer sessions. Okay. So starting off with this one, by the way, if you read down below in the lower sections, it further explains that they initially started with a they started with a battery that was in a like on a belt. Then they moved to a battery that was like in the headband, the same way that a Quest 2 has a battery mounted at the back of the headband. And then they have since moved back to this thing having it waist mounted. I don't know how many people have ever flown FPV drones, but this is usually how those are set up. You have a battery that you stick in a pocket or strap to a belt or whatever. And it has a cable that runs up to your goggles. Those goggles are just straight powered by the battery, and that way it keeps the goggles lighter on your head, though they are always kind of just front weighted. It's not bad. I don't think anyone really cares that much, but it is a thing. They're just more weighted to the front. Anyway, I gotta say this will make it better for long-term wear, but it's going to be just objectively not a pretty thing for a product. And I think that's going to prove to be one of the first things that people just call out is this is inelegant. Even though you won't be able to see the cable while you're wearing it, while you're using it, you won't care that there is a cable. It might get in the way a little bit since you're going to actually have your arms moving around. Whereas when you're flying FPV drones, that's not a thing. You have both hands on a controller. You're not goofing around with like arms moving different directions and taking different positions. You literally just sit there with hands forward, lower than this, obviously, because you don't physically stare at the controller while you're doing it. But yeah, you don't move. Like at flying FPV, you basically just stand or ideally sit and do nothing else. So I don't think the cable's going to get in the way. It could, but it depends on how they've got it set up. Looks goofy? Yes, it does. Google Glass looks better. It certainly does, but we're talking AR VR, so this is a thing. It's going to have to cover your whole face no matter what. Inevitably it was going to be looking like ski goggles. They were stuck with that. Let's see. Next up, design uses aluminum glass and carbon fiber to reduce its size and weight. Cameras are largely concealed for aesthetic reasons. I have no real comments here. That pretty much all makes sense. A small digital crown-like dial on its right side that enables users to quickly transition between the virtual and physical world. Unlike the Apple Watch, it will not offer haptic feedback. Okay, I don't really have much to say on the haptic feedback. I do think it's kind of weird that this is a crown that lets you transition. So I can't tell if the idea here is that you were basically setting it as a fader. That kind of makes sense. That seems like a cool thing, but I'm curious how that works. What does it do? Like, does it just let you fade the image entirely or partially or what? Anyway, next up, Apple's developed different headbands, including one for consumers made of a similar material to Apple Watch Sport bands with built-in speakers, which, to David's point, yeah, that sounds terrible. That just sounds like it's going to tug at your hair. And there is one targeted at developers. I'm so curious how you make a headband that's targeted at developers. What does that mean? Do developers have different hair issues? Do they have different needs? Is this something that just like has or doesn't have built-in speakers? Is it something where maybe it has like a data port that regular people don't get? Like, what's the deal with a developer-oriented headband? I don't get it. Anyway, let's see. It's has magnetically attachable custom prescription lenses for glasses wearers. That one is interesting because it basically implies, well, it implies a lot of things. The biggest one being, if you wear glasses, does this mean that you can't just put this on over your glasses? If that's the case, that means that you have to pay to have custom made lenses for this thing. I'm super not loving that. Okay, so next up, small motors to automatically adjust its internal lenses to match the wearer's interpupillary distance, providing the largest field of view possible for each individual. That sounds super cool, but I'm curious if these small motors are truly automatic, or do they require you to like just input something, hold a button, or do something in order to indicate how this is supposed to work? Or is there actually like sensors that are detecting exactly where your eyes are, how they're positioned, and it adjusts everything to account for that? The latter would be cool. I expect the former in an unfortunate way. Let's see. So wider field of view. That's a thing. Yeah, I guess. It uses the H2 chip for ultra-low latency connection with second generation AirPods Pro and future AirPods models. We're going to come back to this one because I have some rant about this. Austin says, no, custom lenses are so much better than double glasses. I'm not saying that they aren't, but I'm just saying, if let's say you're a person who's just trying them on, does this mean that you can't just try them on with your glasses? Like, if you're a glasses wearer, are you, in order to basically ever use these at all, do you have to get custom lenses made for you? What if you're literally just trying this on in a store? What if you're just going to a friend's house and trying this on? Do you need to get custom lenses in order to be able to see in these, or can you fit them over your glasses? If you can't fit them over your glasses, there's a lot of people who are going to look at this and go, oh yeah, this is not going to work. Like, I'm not spending that much money just so I can try these ones. David brings up, yeah, Google Glass and Focal have options for custom prescription lenses. Yes, they absolutely did. But that's an option. You weren't actually, well, Google Glass was not intended for people who had glasses. At least not practically speaking. Like, right out of the gate, they had the option to put custom lenses into glass. And that worked. but it wasn't good. So yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Glass had this really worked out. To be fair, I kid you not, I 100% could wear Google Glass over my glasses. It was awkward and weird and it looked dumb, but I could do it. It actually wasn't that hard to because of the way that the nose piece worked. I could actually literally kind of not clip them in exactly, but I could slot the nose piece down right over or right underneath the bridge of my glasses, and it actually worked really okay. And it just kind of lifted up the eye reticle just a little bit, so it was a little out of view. But it worked. Austin, that is correct. Oh wait. YouTube comments, I think you're the only one who's commented recently. The last comment, I've got 3 comments from you. Prior to that, there was one from David about Google Glass and Focal. If there have been any other comments, I don't know about them. Obviously, there have been some before that, but if anyone else has said something else since then, I wouldn't know. In which case, if there is a problem... Oh my god, Austin. What the hell, that Imogen RambleCast. That's evil. I just looked at that. Austin cannot see David's. That's fishy. Huh. That is very fishy. And this is why I liked having comments on the video. So maybe I need to fix that again. Or not again, but make a point of fixing that. Oh, damn it. Just what I wanted to spend time on. Yeah, Carson sees both. Okay, so this might just be a problem on Austin's side. Like maybe, I don't know, maybe leave the stream and reset the tab or the app or something and then come back. Oh, okay, you see him on desktop, just not on mobile. Alright, maybe the mobile app is just freaking out. God, awesome. Where did you get that? That is... I know that's... because that is an old picture, too. Damn it, man. I know that's old because that's not what I'm wearing right now. Anyway. So... let's see. The thing I was mentioning, going back to the AR headset. Okay, so the ultra low latency of AirPods Pro and future AirPods models, coming back to that in a moment. Okay, so this has 2 chips, including a main SoC, including a CPU and GPU and memory, and a dedicated ISP. Both are fabricated with a 5nm process, meaning that the headset misses out on the advancements expected to come to other Apple chips later this year. The chips communicate via a custom streaming codec that Apple was forced to develop due to unacceptable latency. I'm sure there's a good technical explanation for that. Don't care. Let's see. I'm going to skip, since it's very closely related, I'm just going to skip down to the last one in this batch that says it has the ability to run existing iOS apps in 2D. Okay. This strikes me as interesting. I'm curious about it. But I have some skepticism that this is something that runs actually on the device and not on the phone. Not that you need to connect to phone, but I have a feeling you're going to be able to. But maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, if you have the ability to run apps, it leaves me with the question, is this intended for gaming, or is this possibly intended for other purposes? Like, you know, kind of the virtual workspace thing, stuff like that. Again, lots of curiosity, not enough answers. Okay, so the dedicated ISP translates the distorted images captured by the external cameras into a faithful video representation of the user's surroundings with low latency. The chip contains custom high bandwidth memory made by SK Hynix. Okay, so I don't have anything specific I'm gonna call out, but I do remember thinking it's just kind of interesting that they're talking about doing this, basically piping your real world surroundings into you in a video feed. But they also talk about having the crown that allows you to transition between the virtual and physical world. Why both? Because in all likelihood, you can just do an overlay that doesn't completely obstruct view. If you can do that, why would you need to pipe the real world in? Wouldn't you just be able to have the overlay showing stuff? So yeah, I don't quite get that. Okay, so the part I wanted to come back to, third-party Bluetooth headphones apparently do not work well with the headset and suffer from too much lag. And there is no 3.5mm headphone jack on the device. What the absolute living, breathing, steaming pile of crap. Why would you not have a 3.5mm headphone jack in an AR/VR headset? DJI's FPV drones have a 3.5mm headphone jack. We're talking drones that make noise right next to their microphones. And Apple is like, nah, we're not going to do this. Come on. No, this is such a shameless, attempt to force people to buy AirPods. That's what this is. 100% they want to force people to buy AirPods so that they can use them with this. That is the reason. Anyway, so it says Apple is focused on making recent and future AirPods models work with low latency when paired with the headset. Both the second generation AirPods Pro and the headset contain the H2 chip, which is said to offer an ultra low latency mode when paired together. Apple has also purportedly debated whether AirPods should be mandatory for communication activities on the headset to better protect privacy. No. I'm not surprised, but again, this is meant to be a lock-in thing. 1000%. This is designed, intended in every way, shape, and form to just be a lock-in. They want the headset to be a motivating factor in buying AirPods. Would you even want to run an FPV drone over Wi-Fi? I doubt it would have the necessary antenna for any DJI compatibility. So it's what now, the O3 system, whatever DJI calls it. It actually is Wi-Fi. It's a bit of a customized version of it, but it is basically the Wi-Fi protocol that they're using. They do have their own streaming technology that is riding over Wi-Fi, and it is basically a forcibly extended version of Wi-Fi, so it travels a greater distance, but it's effectively the same thing. Kirby, it's like the RTX 4080 Most models just make you want to buy an RTX 4090, forcing you up the stack and force you into the ecosystem. I don't think that's the same thing. I get what you're saying, and yeah, that is definitely something Apple does, but this is if you buy this one product, you also have to get this other product. We're not even going to let you use the solution that actually everyone knows and agrees would be superior, which is a pair of wired earbuds or a headset. No, instead you are expected to pick up the much more expensive and entirely unnecessarily more complicated wireless solution. Anyway, let's see. Actually, before I continue, water. Early prototypes of the headset used large external batteries designed for power tools strapped to the wearer's waist, before Apple integrated the battery directly into the headset like the MetaQuest Pro. As of 2022, Apple reportedly shifted the power source back to a battery pack intended to be worn on the user's waist, connected via a cable to the headband, a design advocated by former design chief Sir Johnny Ive. Okay. While it was once rumored that the headband would be interchangeable like Apple Watch pads, that is no longer the case, since engineers face technical challenges with the headband acting as a conduit for power to the headset. Okay. Apple is said to favor hand tracking and voice recognition to control the headset, but it has tested a, quote, wand and a, quote, finger thimble as alternative control input methods. I am fully anticipating that they will... I think what they're going to end up doing is, yes, probably sticking to hand tracking and voice recognition as the primary input methods, but for some purposes, I expect they will probably have an accessory, either the wand or the thimble, that will be for sort of more precise action. Or they might go with like a glove or something. I don't know. But I have a feeling that they're gonna probably try to do more than just the hand track. The headset is not expected to be accompanied by a dedicated gaming controller, and Apple has seemingly not focused substantially on gaming for this device. That being said, the company does have a plan to allow Unity to be its first partner to offer full VR experiences in the headset via its game engine. Yeah, I've thought for a while this probably isn't going to come with a gaming controller. There will be one though. I feel like that's an easy prediction. They'll make one, it'll exist, you'll be able to buy it. It just won't come in the box. Not by default. David, can't wait to see Tim Cook or one of the cronies walk on stage with this thing on. I don't know if you mean quite literally walk onto the stage while wearing this, but I think it'd be hilarious if they did. But no, I agree. I don't think that this is something that they're gonna literally walk on stage with. I think they're gonna get out there, and first off, it won't be Tim Cook. It won't even be one of the other executives. Probably. Instead, I think it's going to be a developer, probably a few developers. They're going to get up there as one talks, another one will wear it. This will in part be to sort of save face by not having a by not showing one of the top level people wearing this and inherently looking somewhat silly on stage. Let's see. Apple is focused on video conferencing on the device with digital avatars that have a high level of accuracy when mimicking a user's facial expressions and body movements. Oh goody. So it is the metaverse. It has also created software to allow users to perform activities like dragging the maps off dragging the Maps app off a Mac screen and using it to display a 3D model of a city on a tabletop, and has devoted resources to educational resources for the device. You know what? This makes me want it. If they have, now I don't particularly like the Maps app thing. That sounds stupid, but it sounds like there will actually be some attention to allowing people to drag things around, and they note off of a Mac screen, which means that this thing may not be like only designed to work friendly with like an iPhone or an iPad. It will be in some way, shape, or form intended to work alongside a Mac. That makes it appealing. I'm more interested now. Do they have feet? Turns out that's trademarked by Zuck. Only he is allowed to have feet, which even he's faking. So, yet another thing he has to fake. Another human trait Zuckerberg has to fake just to get people to like him. Having feet. Let's see. Anyway, the information also reaffirmed the presence of several features it previously revealed and independently confirmed others highlighted by sources like Bloomberg, Nikkei Asia, and Digitimes. These include: the headset has a large outward-facing display on its front. This can show the facial expressions of the headset's wearer to people around them, seeking to reduce a sense of isolation when using the device. I genuinely cannot wait to have this thing showing what looks like smize. Anyone who doesn't know that term, count yourself as lucky, except for the fact I'm about to ruin it. It is quite literally the look of your eyes when you smile. Smize. Also, outward-facing display features an ultra-low refresh rate and reduced power consumption, much like the always-on display of the Apple Watch and iPhone 14 Pro. Okay. Interior micro OLED displays for each eye with a 4K resolution made by Sony, forming an 8K overall image. Or 8K image overall. I'm transposing words. Each eye is tracked by at least one camera, allowing the headset to accurately show the user's gaze on an avatar. Eye tracking also enables the headset to perform foveated rendering to conserve power by only rendering imagery in full resolution directly where the user is looking, which is clever. It's not a new trick, but it's a lot more useful, obviously, in the context of VR. More than a dozen cameras and sensors capture both facial expressions and body movements, including the user's legs. God, I did not read that before. I can't believe that's actually a thing, but okay. Apple apparently removed cameras to capture eyebrow and jaw movements when it developed machine learning to accomplish this. Because, you know what? It's so important you have legs, but damn it, eyebrows and jaw movements? Screw that noise. That's just unrealistic. People don't do those things, right? Let's see. And both short and long LiDAR scanners to help map surfaces and distances in 3 dimensions. You only have 2 dimensions, guys. Come on. The report claims that Apple's supplier, we don't care about the rest. Anyway, in addition, Apple has allegedly discussed pricing the headset at around $3,000 or more, depending on its configuration, according to 4 people with knowledge of the matter speaking to the information. Hell no! Failure mode. $3,000? No. Hard no. F no. I want it, but not for $3,000. They're gonna have to, like, sorry, these things are gonna have to be so good to justify that price, and I don't think they're gonna be there. Not even close. Anyway, so those are my thoughts. My particular bent is against the the lack of a 3.5 millimeter jack, and the fact that it is basically just selling the AirPods. But I think there's a lot of stuff here that's kind of interesting. Some of it, however, sounds very anti-consumer, or just maybe not the best choices. Obviously, I haven't been there for R&D, but I'm curious what other things that they tried and why they may not have accepted them. Because it feels like some of this stuff probably wasn't the best planning. But we'll see. Curvy, you can build a 4K 165 frames per second gaming computer for $3,000. I bet you could do it for less than $3,000. But to be fair, this is a different form factor, and I get that that's probably going to be expensive because of what it is. But yeah, I don't think that this is going to sell that well. Not under these circumstances. Okay, so moving into also out of curiosity, I will at least briefly ask, is anyone inclined to get this? Anyone actually want this? I want it. I do. I absolutely want this, but I want it for things that probably are not going to be part of their use case. But I very much like the idea of using this as like a replacement for a widescreen monitor. This is that classic like low bar that's really hard to accomplish. I want this so that I could be like lying down on my couch and like head looking upward at what is a virtual monitor, ultra widescreen monitor with code on it and the whole 9 yards. That's what I want to be able to do with this thing. I don't want it for crazy big VR stuff. I want it so I can be chilling out on my couch and not have to mount a giant monitor above my head. Anyway. Alright, so Curvy, hell no. Hell no. Okay. Final thing. I'm going final because I can already feel my voice going, and I'm kind of like Corbin. I am running on fumes. I have slept very weird the last several nights. And so I've been up since... When did I wake up? I think about 4-ish? And I didn't have a ton of sleep going into that. Anyway. So, really quick though, and I hate making it really quick because I think there's actually a lot to this topic, but Google wants RISC-V to be a tier 1 Android architecture. Holy crap, do I ever think that that's actually kind of underselling. For once, Ronham Audio actually went with a title that is way too conservative. I think that this is actually kind of huge. So, for those of you who may not be familiar with this, RISC-V is we'll call it basically an open processor architecture. They're doing a thing that is a competitor to ARM. It is much more open. Many different people could be using it, and it would effectively be it would be to processor architectures what like WebM is to video. Like, this is intended to be a low friction thing that they kind of, well, they don't own it. They've created a separate company that owns it. But it would basically be that. And when I say they have, Google is an investor in this. They're not an owner. This is a project that started at Berkeley. It grew out of there. It's got, there are many different companies that are backing this in various ways. Google is trying to back it, but does not actually own it. Awesome. Ron has turned ours into a troll farm. I'm not going to strictly comment, but I will say I don't actually, you know what? I will comment. That is not on him. That is not at all on him. I don't always agree with the way he titles some things or the narratives that he puts on things. And, you know, that's just, it is what it is. Like, I think he goes for salacious in situations where there is nothing salacious. I think he tries, I think he does have gone, or does have gone. I think he has gone down that road of sort of imagining conflict where there isn't sometimes. And he's definitely taken some unwarranted pot shots here and there. But with all that said, I can, like, I think these are relatively minor infractions. When you look at some of the other writers at ours, there are a few others. They are the ones I would blame for the trolls. There are some other writers on there that have left my, like, jaw hanging open, just shocked somebody was willing to spin a story the direction they did, or to write some of the headlines that they have. Ours, yes, has some real problems, but so far, I think Ron may have been a gateway drug to this, but he is the marijuana to the PCP of some of the others. If you catch my drift, like, he is small potatoes compared to some of the other writers. But yeah, he has definitely contributed to it, and like I said, maybe he's a gateway drug. He's the one that got them to this place, but other people, or rather, he might have been the one who kind of got them going down this road. But other people at ours have been so consistently worse. Anyway, especially, and I don't remember the guy's name, but there was one I noticed like 2 years ago. That guy, he was writing about Windows and sometimes security stuff. Holy crap. The guy, it just, like, it raises actual genuine issues of journalistic integrity that guy was allowed to write some of the crap that he did. Wish I could think of his name off. But it's not coming to me, but I would probably know it if I heard it. Maybe. Not sure if I would right now, but anyway. So, the short version, for those who don't know, or rather kind of continuing the short version for those who don't know. The reason this is a big deal, that Google has an interest in RISC-V, is basically because ARM has been showing just complete illogical behavior, technically dangerous behavior, by suing its customers, by misbehaving, by trying to sell the parent company, SoftBank, has been trying to sell ARM for a long time. They've had a bunch of really bizarre decisions and basically shown that there's a very real possibility ARM won't even be there in a few years. Or if they are there, they're becoming more and more hostile to their own customers, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Anyway, so Google previously said, and this is something explained in the article, they basically said that they weren't looking that seriously into Risk V. They were interested, but they weren't making big moves. And then it was just a few months later, they're now showing that they're making very real investments into it. The basic building blocks of Android are in the process of being built for Risk V, or ported rather. They're working on the emulator. They're working on some of the tooling. They've got a lot of different projects in play, which is actually kind of like a real commitment to doing this. In the past, Google put effort into making Android for x86, and it was very slow going because they didn't really assign a lot of people to it. They didn't show much indication that they were making a commitment. And it's still unknown how much commitment that they're putting into this now, but apparently they're expecting to have a runnable version of Android in the emulator for Risk V by, well, they said by the start of 2023. I don't think they actually hit that, but somewhere in the relatively near future, it is. And yes, they're working on the Android runtime support for Risk V, which also is going to be a pretty big part of this, obviously. And they're going to have to work on an assortment of open source projects. They're going to have to work on tooling, SDKs. They're going to have to work with partners. They're going to have to like, there's so much stuff that's going to be involved in this. But if they're actually as committed to doing this as it kind of sounds like they could be, and that's a big could be, it's uncertain, but I have a feeling they might have all the core stuff done before the end of this year. How does that affect getting a phone? In practical terms, there is not even going to be a viable demo phone for sale to the public. That's a key here. Because they already have demo hardware that they're compiling and building for. That part exists, no question to it. But having an actual phone that is consumer ready, I'm not necessarily talking about like as sold by Samsung level of consumer ready. I'm talking more the DIY level. Like somebody like Corbin might buy this because it would be it would be a good replacement for, or not replacement, but another good DIY project for kind of along the lines of the Pine phone. I could see that happening, and that I could see being about 2 years away. And I don't have any real basis for that outside of just estimates from what I know, which is pretty minimal. But I don't think they're going to move quickly to having a real product ready, in large part because they're going to have a lot of optimization work ahead of them. They're going to have a lot of things that they have to sort of re-implement and test and figure out. All of this stuff takes time. So I think in practical terms, we're actually closer to probably about, my guess, 4 to 5 years away. Maybe less. It could actually be as little as 3. But I don't think we're going to see a major company shipping Risk V in the next 2 years. Not in a phone. It could be, it's very notable, it could go into other types of products first. You never know. You could see a Samsung refrigerator with a Risk V processor in it. You could see, maybe they'll move Chromecasts to Risk V, or any number of other possibilities. But I wouldn't expect to see a phone, tablet, or laptop with Risk V for probably a mainstream product for probably 3 years. Awesome. Yep, exactly. A production SoC is at least 3 years out. I do believe that they will have kind of lower end Risk V processors. Not that this is the best comparison point, but when I say that, what I'm talking about is something more along the lines of like a Raspberry Pi style of processor. That kind of thing could happen sooner. Basically, the DIY products will happen first. Because that's the nature of this. This is meant to be an open platform. It's meant to be accessible, and it's meant for companies to kind of come along and throw their own development at it. And that opens it up very much for these sort of smaller, more experimental things. Yeah, non-phone SoCs are out, but they're also not, from what I've heard, they're very much like early DIY level. Very early DIY level. I don't know, maybe they're further along than what I've heard. But obviously, if we're talking phone SoCs, you also have to consider there are plenty of things that aren't built on ARM, but they are built to work with ARM. This includes everything from modems to custom cores. A good example of this is Tensor. Tensor is not inherently ARM. Like, it does not rely on being built on ARM. But ARM was the thing that they built Tensor to work with. And so they will have to go back when Google's working on a future Tensor chip where they switch to RISC-V. They're gonna have to not start from scratch, nothing close to starting from scratch, but they are going to have to sort of retune and adjust a little bit of the custom core work that they have so that it works with RISC-V as opposed to working with ARM. RISC-V has a bunch of DIY SoCs, but mostly for IoT. Exactly. Yeah, it's for really small embedded stuff. It's not meant to run like large OSs. The Pixel TPU is RISC-V. Didn't actually know that. I thought it. Okay. That's cool. So yeah, they're on the road to this. Mostly ARM, but the parts are RISC-V. Right. Okay. But, what it's doing, like, the TPU does a lot of its own processing, but it also creates jobs, basically, that it sends to the ARM cores. So there are some things that it's doing on RISC-V and some things it's doing on ARM. And I know, like, the ISP does a lot of this too. They do some internal processing, but then they also basically create a job, run it through the ARM core, and then take the result of that job and then continue processing in their own way. So Kirby asked in Discord, what does this mean for Google? Was it a mistake? Basically, I'm inferring. Was it a mistake to go with ARM and partnering with Samsung for it? I'm going to say no, because honestly, like, the technology Google built, it's portable. It might take a little bit of work to port some of it to make it work with RISC-V as a processor instead of just working with ARM, but that's a relatively low bar. They'll be able to do this without too much cost, hassle, or trouble. Let's see. So I think I basically hit all of the main points here. But I will say, just knowing what I know, I expect a lot of the software development is going to happen the initial software development, sort of the core components, like the Android OS itself, a lot of the internals that are necessary, some of the open source projects that go into Android OS. A lot of that stuff they're probably, I suspect, going to be rushing, and they're probably going to have something usable. And by usable, I mean minimum viable product level of usable by the end of the year. I think it's going to take a lot longer to get other stuff to the point of usable. And by that, I mean a lot of open source projects, a lot of closed source projects, a lot of drivers, a lot of just the list goes on of all the different things they're going to have to develop. And as a result, I really don't have super high hopes that they're going to be ready software-wise for probably 2 years. And they're always going to be kind of waiting on the chips to catch up. I think that's probably going to be one of the areas that we see a lot of delay. Like, anyone who follows this close, I think you're going to see a lot of announcements about new chips, a lot of things being developed. That's going to sound really neat, but most of it is not going to perform well enough for a few years that it could become a viable alternative. Because people may disagree with ARM, they may not like the company or the policies, they might love RISC-V and what that company or what that platform brings to the table. But if it performs like garbage, people aren't going to want it. And that's where ARM is going to have and hold for a while a significant advantage. Austin, China will push RISC-V. Yeah, they already are. I mean, this article mentions it, but China's been pushing RISC-V for a while too. They definitely want this to catch on. Let's see. Google most certainly had no other options for where they were in development. Yeah. When it comes to Tensor, I'm sure that's what you were referring to. Yeah, they didn't have another option. It's not like they were going to find or convince Samsung to build a RISC-V processor that effectively was nowhere near existing yet, just so they could build all of Tensor on RISC-V. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't be surprised if Samsung ends up being Google's go-to manufacturer for RISC-V someday, but I don't think that that's something that we even need to consider for a while. Austin, last year at CES, AMD said never RISC-V. It's going to be a while before we see everyone change their minds. But we don't need everyone to change their minds. Look, Intel at one point, I believe at one point they said, hey, let's try that ARM thing. And then they turned around and said, no, never mind. Let's not. And, how's that turning out for them? AMD, to my knowledge, doesn't do any ARM stuff either, right? So all things considered, that's not really working out great for either of them. But at the same time, they've avoided big fights with ARM and technically fights with Qualcomm, who I could fully imagine Qualcomm making up excuses to sue somebody over using something similar to them. China will drag the entire industry with them if the industry doesn't naturally flow towards RISC-V. I don't agree entirely. I don't think China has enough influence to make that happen. Not to make it happen. They have influence. They can certainly push, and they might get their way. But I think a large part of that would be their own, or it would be getting lucky. It still depends on what manufacturers outside of China decide to do. But we'll see. I don't doubt for a second that there are a few companies that are going to kind of make that happen anyway. But at the end of the day, it's really going to come down to what Samsung decides to use. or if enough competitors push for Risk B, then it might happen. Okay. Anyway, my throat's actually hurting. Not sure why. I haven't been going as long as I normally do, but it just I'm hitting my limit early today. So let's see. CES has barely started. We'll keep an eye out. There are more announcements coming, and I'll try to make a point of adding them to a list for next week's RambleCast, or possibly this weekend. You never know what'll happen. But with that, gaming this weekend, probably the usual. A little bit of Fall Guys, maybe some other stuff. We'll see what happens. Let's see. I sold my Pixel 6a. It has, in theory, arrived at the recipient's house. Or was it a house? I think it was a house. It should have arrived today. Anyway, so hooray. As a side note, wow, okay, so I didn't have any problems with the actual sale on Swappa, but I feel real sketch about Swappa after a particular incident. Probably should have talked about that. I might talk about that next time, or maybe I'll just bring it up in chat. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, Swappa just left me with a real icky feeling due to a particular encounter with one of their crappy, with a crappy reseller that tried to lowball an offer. Yeah, I'll share details about that probably in Discord. Let's see what else happened. I don't know. I think that's about it for interest. So yeah, gaming this weekend. Hope some of you can make it. If not, I expect to see you next week, hopefully. David, if you're still with us, dude, stay safe, stay well, and enjoy the drinks, because we know. Yeah, we know. Anyway, it occurred to me that probably would have made a lot more impact in full view. We know. Anyway, so enjoy Vegas. I wish I was there. I think. Pretty sure the weather's slightly better there than it is here. Let's see. To everyone else, enjoy the CES coverage. And yeah, catch you this weekend or the next. But with that, thank you all for coming by. Thank you for hanging out, being part of the conversation. The chat room was actually pretty active today, which is also something I need to fix, is the chat room showing up in video as it's supposed to do. For those that don't already support the channel, but many thanks to those who do. But to those who would like to support the channel in any way, shape, or form, there are links down below to Streamlabs, Cash App, and Patreon. Feel free to check them out. Click around a little bit. Maybe, you know, do the thing in the place. It helps keep the channel going. And yeah, I'm blanking out. I can feel myself getting tired. But with that, I hope you all the best rest of your week. I will be putting together a movie post in another day or so, and doing all the normal jazz. And with that, good night, everybody.